YouTubers generally are not totally aimless with what they're doing. There's some strategy behind it. They can like make a decision to craft their future. And I very much was like, there needs to be a lot of thinking behind what you're doing and what the next step is going to be. There's this phrase like getting out while it's still good, which I think is really important. A lot of people will blow up off of one thing and they won't be able to figure out what the next thing is in time. And they'll just kind of drift into the sunset off that one thing. And they're too scared to jump onto the next thing because it's like, well, what if it tanks my career or something, right?
Yeah.
What if I lose the following I do have? But if they never make that jump, once again, like Ethan said, if you don't try, you will fail. If you do try, there's a chance you'll succeed, you know? I very much have the mentality that like, once in a while, I got to rethink what I'm doing because before you know it, you could be kind of down and out. Your content could be passe.
Yeah.
And I still have that to this day. So I got to think about a lot right now, which is like, what is the next thing? Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the like modeling after other people, because I think when you talk to a lot of people that aren't artists or whatever this is, a lot of people think that the stressing and going for original ideas and trying to do totally original stuff all the time is like the best way to make your name initially. And I remember, because I went to school for music, and especially in jazz, you spend a lot of time transcribing solos where you just listen to a guy play and you try to like learn it over and over and over again. And we had always learned the saying that like I think good artists, it's something like good artists imitate and great artists steal. That like if you want to become like really great and you're just starting out, it's better to just like totally copy other people's stuff, make it part of your vocabulary, then grow off of it. So it's interesting for the YouTube stuff that you essentially approach it the same way. I'm curious, now that you're a larger YouTuber, you mentioned before that there must be some strategy. When you look at a lot of large YouTubers, do you feel like most of them do strategize, or do you think they mainly kind of got lucky and then they plateau and they can't figure out how to move on? Or what do you think? Yeah, what do you think is like the average YouTuber approach? Do you think that they strategize as heavily as you do, or they kind of go with the flow? I
feel like on average, the average YouTuber probably they strategize enough to get big to a certain point they're comfortable with, and then unfortunately they get kind of lazy. They don't really push the envelope or the boundary anymore.
Like Hassan Piker.
Yeah, and they and they kind of coast off of that for a while, right? I think it's an exception that somebody's able to make it for a long time. I will say,
like Destiny.
Yes. There used to be this like notion, you probably remember this, that like if you're a YouTuber, you've got like 3 to 4 years and that's it, and you're done. And that's because a lot of people back then weren't strategizing or thinking about the next thing. But now you've got these legacy creators who've been doing it for like 10, 15 years who are still around, like streamers. You've got YouTubers who do it. I mean, I mentioned SXE Phil earlier. His channel has had various like, high points and low points, but he's been consistent throughout time and trying to improve what he's doing. And he's still doing it to this day, getting pretty good views. And that's the case for a lot of people. But also, I'd say that's probably like 10, 20% of people. A lot of other people, they're kind of a flash in the pan. They're experimenting when they're starting out. They're figuring out how to get big. Once they have a big blow up that feels impressive to them, they never really escape that. And I think that's a very unfortunate position to be in. And I'd be like very insecure and paranoid about that.
Why do you think when you look at YouTubers or streamers today, what do you think are the things that make you the most unlikable? Like, what are things that, like if I wanted to destroy my reputation with my audience, or if a YouTuber wanted to just destroy, like, what are the things that you think make people?
I think it would be hard for you to do it, but broadly speaking, I think a thing that pisses people off a lot is complaining about your job. Everybody complains about their job. Obviously, it makes sense. And there are valid complaints.
Like Hassan Piker on that one viral clip.
That's why I'm actually bringing this up. There are valid complaints to bring up with the job. Like, there are stresses to it. And in some ways, it can be harder than a normal job. But when you're making the amount of money that we're making, when you're making YouTube videos, when you have like all these followers and stuff, people just, they don't want to hear it. When they're stocking at an Amazon warehouse, right? And they're having like a shitty day. And then they hear that Hassan Piker is like, it's so socially draining. Like, it's just not something they want to fucking hear. So that's a big one. I think a big thing definitely is, a thing that will happen is you'll go from a very relatable, down-to-earth person to being a rich person. And you'll do rich person things. And you'll talk about rich person things. This is a big thing for like someone like Tom Segura, who's a pretty famous comedian. He got in a lot of shit with his audience because he went from being relatable to being rich. And instead of just being rich, he would be like, all these broke losers in my comment section, call me when you have a Porsche, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, people don't want to hear that.
I feel like XQC was running into problems with this, where he was like showing up in crazy outfits, like at casinos, like taking pictures of like $10,000 stacks and gambling, and people started to feel like he wasn't the same kid that was just playing Overwatch.
People especially don't like it when they respond to criticism being like, well, I'm rich. You remember he did that during the Ethan thing. He was like, look at my watch. He did it when
house is on my wrist, yeah.
Yeah, he did it when someone on Twitter called him out. It was kind of a dumb criticism. They were like, I can't imagine a bigger scum. It was him like soy facing at like a building being destroyed. And he responded with a picture of him with a bunch of money. That's hilarious. And I think his audience at this point is cool with that. But obviously to like people outside of your audience, that might hurt your ability to grow, because they're just going to see you as like a skunk streamer they're never going to want to hear from.
Yeah.
There are certain things you can do that turn people off. And that's, I'm definitely guilty of doing things like that. Not with the flexing thing, but I've definitely done things that like to a certain amount of the audience, we'll just have them like, they don't want to listen, you know? And I think it's okay to do some of that stuff if that's who you are. I think it's important. You don't want to hide it. But at the same time, you don't want to get in a habit where that's all you're fucking doing. That's everything that people see of you.
There's a really fine line. I know this because I transitioned from StarCraft into a horrible game called League of Legends. And when somebody's angry, but they're not really angry, or they're like angry, but it's like funny angry, it's like the most hilarious thing in the world to watch. But when somebody's angry and they're like genuinely salty, it's like the least fun thing in the world to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, like watching somebody like blame whatever teammates or, you know, but they're like having a good time and they're fun. It's like, it's cool, it's funny. But as soon as you can tell somebody's like genuinely really upset and they're just like salty as fuck, then you can enjoy it, but only like in an anti-fan way. And then ordinary fans are like, this is dumb, like I don't want to watch this anymore. Yeah. So just curious, if you didn't really want to do it as a job and your parents were kind of like ambivalent or whatever towards it, they didn't care about you posting videos of yourself online and putting it on the internet?
They didn't like it. My dad was kind of indifferent. He was like, oh, it's kind of cool. My mom was like, fuck this. I remember there was this one moment when I was like 15 years old, and I don't remember, but I had failed a math test or something, and my mom was like, this YouTube thing is getting in the way. And I remember being at the family computer and she was like looking up how to delete a YouTube channel, and I was like, no. And I like unplugged. I had like 500 subscribers and I unplugged the fucking thing from the wall. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, don't do this to me. I was so livid. And it wasn't even like I thought it would be a job. I was just obsessed with it. Like I was so obsessed with it, and I still am. But back then, like the ultimate punishment for me, for my parents, was taking away the computer. And I would always find a way to get it back. I remember there was this one time when I think I was 14 or something, and they got a lock on their the door to their room. And their room like divided like half of the upstairs at that time. It was like their room, and then they had like a big walk-in closet, and then they had like an office. And so they put a lock on it so I couldn't get in. So what I did is I stole all the keys from the lock, every copy of the key, and I rode on my bike out in the middle of the woods, and I threw them as far as I could so they would never be able to fix it, basically. And they didn't, and the lock went off the door, and I kept using the computer. But I remember I would sit. This is something I've never even said. So my room had like it's like a square. You have like a bed, a desk, and another desk. And my mom would like want me to be doing homework or something. And what I would do is I would sit with my computer behind the desk in a spot she couldn't see me, and I would be on my computer all day. It would be on a laptop on the floor on my fucking knees, which I think fucked up my knees, but I would just be sitting there doing that all day. And if I would hear her coming, and I could hear very well at this point.
Dude, I think it's got to be like a young boy thing. Yeah, you can tell instantly when you hear a step. It's like, that's mom. She's upset, and she's coming like at 15 miles an hour. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
So you're on your computer, yeah?
So I'm on my computer, and I would hear her, and the laptop was supposed to be in her room. And so what I would do is I would fold it, I would slide it under the desk, and I would put a book on top of it, and then I would quickly get in position. I already had all my homework laid out. So I would be like, oh, I'm just studying. And then she would leave, and then I would just go right back to it all day. And that's all I gave a shit about. I did pretty well in school. I think I would have done worse if they hadn't really like, cracked the books on me, because they were very... they really wanted me to do well. So they made me take like AP classes, and I did pretty well in those.
They were never sophisticated enough to like check your YouTube channel or account to see if you were posting or doing anything?
They would check sometimes, but I think they just assumed if things were going well enough at any point in time that I wasn't really doing enough on it, that it wouldn't be a problem. But then eventually, if I like failed a test or something, or like a grade dropped below like 90, they would be like, what the fuck is going on, Tom? And they'd look at it and be like, what the fuck are you doing? You fucking asshole.
Is your name short for Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like my experience. But I remember going back to the early YouTube days, the first time I really felt like I always liked YouTube. I like watching like Markiplier, the gaming stuff. But the first time that it really felt like a community to me, which really enticed me, was like 2015-16 drama days with like Leafy, iDubbbz, Grade A Under A, I Hate Everything. All of those guys, what they were doing was really interesting to me, because it was like a community of people where they blew up making videos, some of them making fun of people, some of them talking about their opinions. And then there were these like different stories that would come along, and everybody would talk about the story and give their take. And like this guy would respond to this guy, and then they'd get a response here. There would be drama, and like some people's careers would get destroyed, which I think is kind of silly looking back to think that happened. But that was the perception, that if one of these big guys made a video about you, your career might be over or something like that.
2015-16, this is about when you started posting.
This is when I really started posting. Yeah.
Okay.
And the videos were really bad. One of the first videos I made, which is on YouTube somewhere, it was a commentary video about a kid that I went to school with. He had like an anime review channel, and I was like, this guy sucks. And then I remember in like the part 1 of the video, I ended it on me drinking like a bleach cocktail with the Tide Pod in it. And then I remember some of the comments, because I had like 10 comments or something, and some of the comments were like, well, he has more subscribers than you, so someone must like him. So what I did to prove scientifically that nobody liked him is I went around the school and I filmed videos of kids being like, this guy sucks. And I had like a 30-person compilation from the school that I put in a YouTube video.
You never got in trouble at school for bullying, or he never showed the video to like a teacher or the principal?
Oh, they did. They did. And I think I was like, that's not me. And they were like, okay. And then they called me back in and they were like, upon further inspection, it seems your face is in the videos. And I was like, I don't know, it's someone else or something. And they couldn't do anything about it because it wasn't on school grounds or something. The video wasn't posted on school grounds.
Because you went to like a public school, or?
Yeah, even though it was filmed there, which doesn't really make sense. But the video was up for a little while, and then eventually I deleted it once I was like getting a little better making videos. But
when you were making videos, were you worried that like your parents or like your classmates would see stuff you're posting and think you're a loser, or?
No, I didn't give a shit. But they were looking at it, and they did think I was a loser, but I didn't care. I was like, whatever. I don't give a shit.
Did you have like friends?
Yeah, I had a lot of friends. Yeah.
Like in school, were there people that you talked to and that you knew and like you were kind of chill with, or were you like, fuck it, I'm like a child of the internet, I'm in this community? Like, did you have a lot of other people you could talk to, like Leafy and all these people about, like in class, or?
We didn't really talk about YouTube stuff as much, maybe a little bit, but I had a group of friends that I had from when I was 8 when I moved to that town until I graduated high school. It was the same like 4 or 5 people. And
did any of them see you getting into the YouTube stuff and like want to be a part of it, or? Yeah,
early on there were a few of us doing YouTube actually. Like I remember freshman year there was my buddy Ian. He had a YouTube channel. My buddy Isaac, and then there was the kid that I basically bullied. And we would like at the time we had our own little community. We would like make response videos to each other. Like we would shit on each other. Okay. And I remember early on I was the guy to shit on. We would go to school and like talk and hang out, and then we'd go home and be like, this guy sucks on like YouTube, which was funny. Okay. And one of my friends, Isaac, I feel like he was actually way more talented and funny than me. He just didn't keep at it, but I just kept at it. I just kept doing it.
Was the one guy that you bullied, does he still make YouTube videos?
Not that I know of.
You did end a career. That's the first one.
Maybe.
I think that when people are doing small businesses, when people are trying to make it in the world, people will start with things that they love. They have a really hard time, I don't want to say monetizing it, but like working it into something that other people can consume, right? So I'm sure that for every person like you, there are like 10,000 people who are like, I really like this video. You mentioned, Isaac or Ian, one of your friends. Yeah. We were like, I think he was probably more talented than me. And I'm sure I've met people like that who are like, this guy could put me out of business.
He was just way funnier than me.
Yeah. But why do you think that in your approach to things, it wasn't just you like making videos to see what would happen? Like you strategically kind of approached it, and you were willing to kind of like do that extra work to take like the fun, passionate thing of like making videos, but also kind of work it in like a business. Was it all just fun to you, or did anybody ever, I'm curious, like to start that process, what was it that got you thinking of it more like a business, or like more like I need to strategically approach this and more, rather than like, oh, I'm going to be a YouTuber and whatever? It
was a business to me, but it was the business of like views and subscribers. I didn't really care about the money. I didn't really need money.
Yeah. When I say business, I don't necessarily mean like focusing on the money. I just mean, but you're like strategically like focusing on growth and stuff. You're not just like randomly posting whenever. Like the fact that you're thinking ahead for summer, I need like a string of videos and I'm trying to hit these goals or whatever.
Well, I knew that the consistency was really important, and I could see that because I could see that the YouTubers that did well were the guys who were posting, fucking every day. And I wasn't able to post every day. I was trying to post like twice a week at one point, I think, back then. But it was, I knew that like to build an audience, you need to be in the limelight. You need to give people a reason to pay attention to you right now, especially when you're a smaller channel. Once you've got a little bit of an audience, then you can maybe work on a passion project that takes longer, but because the audience is waiting for it, they'll probably give it views or whatever. Like, I mean, like look at H-Bomber guy, right? That guy barely fucking posts. He posted one video in the past few months and it got 20 million views or something like that.
That was a killer video.
Was it?
Or wait.
It did very well.
Oh.
Performed well.
Didn't that guy kill himself?
Oh, I get it. Allegedly. I don't think he really did.
Oh shit, never mind.
But
when you're approaching and you're making the videos and you're strategizing, you're doing these particular things, right? in the path to doing that, did you ever feel discouraged by like online stuff, or did you ever post a video and like feel like shit because it didn't do as well, or were you always like, I'm gonna make it, I know I'm gonna make it, there's like not even a doubt in my mind?
There were definitely doubts, but I guess my mindset behind it was just like, there was this old Ethan Klein video where he talked with his audience. It was a very candid video, and he talked about it was a story about how he was very poor at the time, living with Hila in LA, and he remembered how he had to put like a bell pepper back because he was so broke. Like, he couldn't afford a bell pepper, and he was very upset by that. And he was talking, you know, Hila, they weren't really making money. I think she was trying to do art stuff, but they had to work jobs regardless of that. And they were having conversation about like, is this YouTube stuff worth pursuing at this point? Like, is it really worth it? And they were in a much worse position than me because I was like, you know, relatively wealthy kid, everything paid for by my parents. And they made the case that basically like, well, if we never try, it will never happen. If we don't try, it definitely won't happen. If we try, at least there's a chance. And maybe, you know, if it doesn't work out, we can look back someday and be like, well, at least I tried, right? So that was kind of the mentality I had, that like, you know, I would definitely get, I remember after I got like the 1 million view video, the next video I posted got like 500,000 views, which was good because it was related to the main video. And the next video I posted got like 80,000, which, you know, it was way better than I was doing before, because previously I was averaging like 10,000 views, but it was still like, well, what the fuck? Like, I had 1 million, now it's 80,000. But I had the mentality basically that, well, I have the audience now. I'm in a better position than I was before. I have more of a chance now of getting another video with 1 million views. And, you know, if I quit, if I have this like perfectionist mindset, this is the thing a lot of artists have. They're like, you know, artists, whatever. They're perfectionists. And there's this quote that says, I'm stealing this from someone. The perfect is the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
It's basically just to say that if you never try to put out anything, and you're constantly focused on perfectionism, maybe once in a while you put out something perfect, but you'll never build a consistent thing out of it. You'll never actually make a living from it because you're always focused on making the most vital, perfect thing. And ultimately, it's hard to get attention from that. It's hard to make people care, right? Especially early on. You need to give people a reason to like care about you consistently for any amount of time before you can set the expectation that, okay, now I can make these perfect projects, right?
Sure. Okay, I'm not trying to circle jerk you too much, but 14 to 18, young man's life, really challenging. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're 21, so you're still in a challenging phase of life. You're growing. There's girls
or boys in your case.
There's I'm just kidding. There's girls. You're trying to do school. You've got parents. You've got college, and all of this. And I'm sure that it must feel like you're in a pinball machine with all your other friends who are just bouncing around doing whatever. But you're like on this career path, right? Where you're like grinding away at this YouTube stuff, and you're working to build this into a career while everything else is going on in the background. There are people that try to do this full time, like well into their 20s or past school, or when they're more stable, and they still can't handle getting a 500,000 view video and then posting an 80,000 view video, or they can't handle not having like a continual shout out or growth, or when they hit that 20,000 subscriber bump 1 month and the next month they get 200 subs, it's like they can't, they're over. What, like, I'm just so curious, and I understand it's hard to answer because maybe it's just a biological thing, you're wired, or was there like a certain video or a certain mentor or a certain YouTuber? Like, why do you think you were able to push through all of that so really like effortlessly? Because it seems like when you talk about your early uprising, it sounds like an entrepreneur in his 30s who's like, yeah, I started grinding at this thing, I modeled my behavior off of successful people in the field, and then I continued to persevere and push through, knowing that I'd make it, and eventually I did this and that and that and that, and then I did it, and it's like, okay, this sounds reasonable, but then you're like, oh, and I was 15 when I did this. It's like I
had really bad tunnel vision, and I still do. Like, I was just very obsessed with it. Like, I cared about girls, but not that much, and not that I was getting a lot of female attention anyway at that time and today, but I was really tunnel visioned on it. I just, like, there was nothing I actually enjoyed more than doing that. Like, did
you ever run into peers who were like obsessively trying to build the YouTube thing that you wanted to talk to? Like anybody in school or college? Nobody?
No, there was nobody. Everybody was, just kind of along for the ride. And that's what I felt like when I went to college. It was just like, it's the expected thing to do, which is why for a degree I picked digital media and journalism, because it fit what I wanted to do best. But once I got there, I realized a lot of the kids there were kind of disinterested in what they were actually doing. They didn't seem really motivated for it. The professors were, they were decent, but a lot of them were like working second jobs. Like, they weren't really making money. And I remember I had this conversation with a professor about like after class, about like the realistic expectation of making money. And they kind of just laughed at me, and they were like, go to a different school, And the idea of like being broke or like writing for BuzzFeed or something, and like living in New York and like writing shit I didn't care about was so dismal.
I always try to maximize for things that I enjoy, because I don't ever want to be at a spot where I feel like I'm having to make content because my audience wants it, or because like I have to do it to keep my channel going. I just try to do what I want.
That's a very important thing to do, I think. You don't want to accrue an audience who is only there for content that you fucking hate making.
Yeah.
Because you can tolerate that for a little while. You know, you can tolerate a certain amount of it. Like, certainly sometimes there will be a thing on stream, like this new like Lex Updog video that I watched.
Yeah.
Honestly didn't want to watch it. I'm kind of done with that drama. I wasn't interested. But I was like, you know what? People want me to watch it. I'll probably have a good response with some good insight. It'll make a good clip. It'll get a bunch of views, and people will want to see that from me. So that's, you know, I did that, right? But then other times on stream, you know, the end of my streams, I'll stream for like 8-9 hours, and 4 hours of it are generally me playing Fortnite and just bullshitting. And at the beginning, when I would do that kind of stuff, my viewership would go from like 1,000 viewers to like 400. And now I'll get like, you know, 15 to 1,700 when I'm streaming drama, and I'll get like 13 to 1,400, or maybe even a little more. Maybe it'll just maintain while I'm playing Fortnite, because I know I have to condition the audience to what I want to do, because I have to actually like what I'm doing to do it well. And I think that's really important.
That conditioning part is really hard for a lot of people, though, because they very quickly fall into audience capture patterns, where as soon as they do something that the audience doesn't like, they're like, oh God, they're like mad at me. And it's hard. Like, even I have to gear my mind towards, listen,
you just
motherfuckers,
have to say, like,
we're training this is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, fucking leave. I stream, I'll do drama, I'll cover the subreddit for like 2 or 3 hours every day, and then after that I do what the fuck I want. I said, I'm reading a book today, we're reading a fucking book. Okay, sit here and like it, or get the fuck out and come back tomorrow. Yeah,
this is a phenomenon with like musicians a lot, where they'll blow up off of an album people really like, and the people, because they like that album, will want just more of that. And it's a very hard thing to say, listen, I appreciate you guys want that, but I'm going to do what I want to do. And on one hand, it might cause a momentary dip in money or something like that, but long term, it's much better for these artists, because they can actually make art that they care about, that they want to do, and they'll enjoy touring and stuff like that. And they can still play the songs that people love, they can still play the big stuff, but they're going to burn out and just be miserable, and basically only be remembered for the past if they never try to move forward.